You gonna be able to see Deb, raise your hand, or will you tell us? Okay. Oh, yeah, there we are. Hey, there we go, she raised her hand. I saw that on the screen, so I don't know for that. Okay, 6 o'clock, our chair is home sick, so I am running the meeting today. And so I open the meeting as of now. And our first order of business is flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Director Wolford. See here, review agenda, any additions or deletions? Okay. And then next up is board appreciation. Dave, you're up.
Yeah, just good evening before we get into our agenda.
Okay.
Do we need to take action on the agenda? Is that what? Okay.
No.
I missed something, but I was wrong.
Gotcha. Before, I want to take a moment just to recognize that January is the Board Appreciation Month. Tonight you'll see posters around the room that were signed by all the staff and students in our schools, kind of saying thank you for what you do. Each one is a simple, genuine thank you to the board for your service and support. You know, I worked directly for and with boards now for 15 years. And I want everyone to kind of hear this clearly. We're fortunate in Newberg to have this board. You're thoughtful, reasonable, you're here for kids. You don't treat your role like a platform, you treat it like a responsibility. You ask hard questions. You expect clarity, you want the why, not just the what, and you take your fiduciary responsibility seriously, especially in a time when school finance is tight. You know, we're always watching what's going on. You also model something our state needs more of right now, and that's collaboration. You work through disagreements and without turning them into fights. You listen, you ask for data, you ask for perspective, you ask what's sustainable and what's fair. So I want to recognize something else that people don't always see. This board's work is not just in the meetings. You read, you prepare, time spent in training, community conversations, going to community meetings that we've been going to lately. And most of it happens without almost no recognition. So tonight's kind of that time for me just to call that out. This year, we carry the heavy parts of leadership, budgeting, staffing realities. We're going to talk about some kind of subjects tonight. But I appreciate having you here to work with us on this. Now, like I said, I've worked with many boards and I really appreciate the professionalism, good judgment, and commitment to students. So on behalf of our students, our staff, I just want to say thank you for serving. Thank you for being present. Thank you for the way you approach the work. And again, board appreciation. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question, Aubrey. Maybe you should speak up when we talk so people can hear. So.
We got a mic.
Don't have mics today.
We can get a mic. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
We're all.
We'll use that
projector
speaker voice.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. I wasn't a teacher, I was always a coach, so I'll use my coach's voice. So, okay, consent agenda. This is just the minutes, right?
It looks good. I move that the Newberg Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Deb, raise your hand online, so we're good, unanimous. Okay, time for public forum. Individuals who are on site during this portion of the board meeting, members of the public are specifically invited to present items of commendation or concerns. Personal matters may not be discussed in public. At a school board meeting, members of the public who have personal concerns or recommendations should share them directly with their district superintendents. Just a reminder that public comments, public comments. We have allotted 30 minutes, for public comments with a 3-minute limit per person. And public comments will be processed in the order received. Name and city of residence are required for all comments. I saw at least a couple in there. Did we grab them all? Or did we cover them?
Yeah, we have them right up here.
Okay. Why can I?
Maria. Maya. Oh,
Mark, get that in there. A lot of stuff.
Put them up there. Okay.
Hi, my name is Maya Barnes, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Edward Elementary, and I live here in Newberg. I actually have 3 kids of my own at an elementary, middle, and a high school. So it's a fun, wild, crazy year for our family as well, having all the buildings. The staff at Edwards, I'm here tonight representing Edwards Elementary, and the staff at Edwards has 63 staff members compiled a document describing the critical concerns we have about the proposal to restructure Edwards Elementary into a dual language magnet school. We shared that document with the board and the administration, and this is just a summary. It was rather lengthy, and it won't be read in 3 minutes, so we're made a summary of the main concerns. Edwards Elementary staff support the district's goal of long-term financial sustainability, but we have strong concerns regarding converting Edwards into a dual language DL magnet school. We believe the proposal would harm community trust, weaken the dual language program, and create serious equity and access problems for South Newberg families. First, community trust and confidence. The Newberg community is still recovering from recent district instability. Another major restructuring would increase distrust, drive families out of the district, and reduce support for future local option levy. Taxpayer investments in the Edwards campus and playground were intended to serve South Newberg neighborhood, and using the large facility for a small magnet program would signal poor accountability and a waste of community resources. Number 2, risk to the dual language program. The dual language program is not sustainable as a standalone school for several reasons. Enrollment has declined over time, largely due to fewer Spanish-speaking families enrolling. And we expect to see this trend to continue in the foreseeable future. Smaller class sizes and ongoing attrition could make that impossible to keep a full school open fully for dual language. The dual language program would then either be discontinued or another restructuring would be necessary. Expanding enrollment by admitting more English-speaking students would undermine the program's research as well, based on the purpose of serving Spanish-speaking learners. Making the program K6 or K8 would also likely cause families to leave due to concerns about limited middle school experiences. Staffing bilingual teachers is already difficult, and a standalone program would lose flexibility to share staff and resources such as special ed and Title I support with the English medium strand as we do now. Finally, isolating the DL program would increase just segregation and deepen an us versus them divide rather than inclusion across schools. If that makes sense. And I'm looking at the timer. So, we have, well, can Ruth continue?
Yeah.
Thank you. And my name is Ruth Schoenhoff, and I teach at Edwards. I've been there for about 22.5 years, and 2 of my kids have gone through Edwards as well. And our third point is that this would harm the South Newberg families as a whole in that area of town. South Newberg families depend on Edwards as a neighborhood school, and that's not just for convenience and tradition. Our neighborhood school is truly crucial to access and equity for many families in South Newberg. Edwards is the only school in all of South Newberg, which is a low-income and vulnerable community. Many families rely on walking access for transportation, school involvement, and emergency needs. Busing students out of the neighborhood would reduce attendance, increase barriers to family participation,
and raise serious ethical concerns about equity. Edwards has built a unique culture of belonging, safety, and high expectations for students who experience trauma and instability. Staff feared that students would not receive the same level of respect and inclusion in other neighborhood schools, and that their social emotional well-being and learning would suffer. So in conclusion, regarding the 3 points we've presented, our staff urges district leaders not to convert Edwards into a magnet school, but to keep it the successful neighborhood school that it currently is. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Was there anything else up there, Dave?
No, that was it.
Okay. Last call, anybody else? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public forum time. You, Director Allen, for helping me on the timer. Next, we're going to reports, presentation, discussion items. First up is NHS presentation, Mark Ryan.
Hello, I'm Mark. I'm the interim principal here at Newberg High School. And thank you for being here at Newberg High School tonight. It's fun to get to host you and have you step inside the building. It was fun to have a little taste of what I get to do all day, every day, hang out with students and listen to the music that they make and see the amazing things that they do. And I just want to spend a little bit of time highlighting some of the things that are happening at Newberg High School. I don't normally have notes, but I have notes with me tonight because as I was sitting there and I talked with my leadership team where I said, hey, I got to present what are some of the challenges or what are the really good things happening at Newberg High School. And they wouldn't stop talking about all the good things that are happening. And I figured I better have a list and some notes because I don't want this to go too long. I know you have a lot going on tonight, but I don't say this lightly. As I was preparing my thoughts and thinking about this and thinking about all the cool things from athletics to performing arts to this past week, we had the FFA state officers here visiting our chapter, which is one of the most storied chapters in the state of Oregon. In fact, one of our current students is applying to run for state president of FFA, which is pretty amazing. I was thinking about, the unified basketball game that happened last week. And this is the first year we've had unified PE where we have a PE class with students of all ability levels working together, doing the same exact activities, not separated at all. Working together as teammates, and then they get to play in games. It's just, as I was sitting there writing all this stuff down, thinking about it, I became emotional. And I don't say this lightly, but I was a little nervous because I started to cry and I was like, oh, I hope no one walks in on me right now. But as I sat there, I just thought, and I was like, wow, there is so much good going on here. And in the midst of a lot of the conversations that you all have to be a part of and that I get to be a part of in my job, it's sometimes hard to remember that. And so I just want to remind all of us that there's a lot of really good things going on here. And I want to highlight some staff and some students. First, I want to highlight our BAR staff. BAR is a program that we do. You've probably heard about it at times, but it stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risks. And what this is it's an organization that we've partnered with for the past 5 years here at Newberg High School. And specifically, we focus on our 9th grade students because research tells us that the 9th grade year is the #1 indicator of high school graduation success, right? If you want to figure out what's going to help a student either be successful or what's going to get in the way of them being successful, you look at that 9th grade year. And there's a strong correlation between the success during that 9th grade year and whether or not those students are going to graduate. And so even though we often focus on the graduation stage, for us, it really starts with what are we doing to make a really strong on-ramp to that high school experience. And so what we do with BAR is we have teams of 9th grade teachers who come together every single week. We have one meeting on Tuesday afternoons, one meeting on Thursday mornings. They come, meet in the conference room, they sit around the table, and they talk specifically about students. And the cool thing about BAR is it's a strength-based approach. Whereas a lot of the programs we have when you're working with at-risk students, you just tend to focus on what's going wrong or what the challenges are. And BAR, and we're very intentional, it happened this afternoon in our meeting. One of the teachers started in and they were starting to talk about what they're seeing, the downward trend they're seeing with the student. And our facilitator stopped them and said, hold on, let's start with the positives. What are these students' strengths? And it's a good reminder for all of us in education that every single student, regardless of what we are seeing behaviorally, regardless of what type of academic outcomes we're seeing, and it's easy to focus and see the challenges, but we need to be reminded that they all have strengths. And so I really appreciate that about the BARD program. But what we do is we meet every week and we talk about the student strengths, but then what are the challenges that we see? But then specifically, we create a SMART goal around, okay, what are we going to do? Who's going to be tasked with going and figuring out how we're going to help that student succeed, and not giving that student necessarily what we think they need, but creating a they can experience success for themselves. And you know, it's not always been the easiest. It takes extra time, it takes work, it takes commitment from our staff, and there's been times where it's like, oh, is this really working? I think a couple of highlights to point out and reasons why I would point to the fact that yes, it is working. Last week we had the Oregon Secretary of State came, and we as a district between our two middle schools and high school were highlighted for the work that we're doing. We had 3 people from the BARD national office fly out to see, because we are the first high school in the state of Oregon, the first district in the state of Oregon who has said, hey, this is going to be our approach to helping our students be successful in 9th grade year. And so it was cool to see us and our staff get highlighted for that work. But I always want to look at the data, right? Because data doesn't lie and data tells the story. And when I look at our data, when we first started doing the BARD program, when we brought it to Newberg High School back in 2020, 2021, our 9th grade on track to graduate rate as measured by the state was 71%. As of the 24-25 school year, so 2 full cohorts of students who were talked about during their 9th grade year through the BARD program, our 9th grade on track rate has now increased to 88%. So 17% increase. I want to give some credit to Tammy Herring. She was the principal during that time. And I really want to give a ton of credit to our BARD teachers, specifically our 2 BARD coordinators, Angela Kantz and Stacy Mormon. They attend the meetings, but they put in a lot of additional work outside of the meetings to bring all the data, to bring the teachers together. But the cool thing is that's not the only data point that BARD, I think, points to. When you look at our graduation rate, when we started it, our graduation rate at Newberg High School was 85%. We took a dip down in 2023 to 83%. But I'm proud to say that as of this fall, our 24-25 graduation rate was reported at 91%. So we got over 90% for the first time in as far back as Superintendent Parker and I can find. We can't find another year where Newberg High School was above 90%. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that that's the product of what happened starting 5 years ago with our BARD program, and how we got those students on the right track from their 9th grade year, and then they were able to be successful from there. And so it's encouraging to see that. I've also had some preliminary conversations around our embargoed state data, the official data that's going to come out. I can't announce it yet. I don't even know it yet, but all of I'm confident it's going to be good, and that we're going to have a lot to celebrate here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to see what that shows us, because that's going to break it down even by subgroups and different categories of students more specifically. So I can't wait to come back and share that good news. So I want to highlight Stacy Mormon and Angela Kanson, all of our BARD teachers, for the work that they are doing to support our students and help them be successful. And then I want to highlight some student groups. It just so happens that one of our student board reps is part of the group that I'm going to highlight tonight. I didn't realize that or think about that when we decided that we were going to highlight our Future Business Leaders of America group. We have not had an FBLA group on our campus for more than 10 years. It just hasn't been in existence. But this year, Ashlyn said, we're going to do it. I want to do it. How do I do it? And so I talked her through it, and they submitted a club application, and she was able to recruit one of our teachers, Miss Alvarez, to be the sponsor for that. And in just a couple of months, with not a lot of time, but a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, Ashlyn and 5 other students went to their first regional competition last week. And I am proud to report that we had 6 individuals placed in the top 10, which means 6 individuals from Newberg High School in our very first year of having FBLA are going to represent Newberg High School at the state competition later this spring. Kate Waters placed first in cybersecurity. Joseph Moisen placed first in economics and second in international business. Hannah Ramirez placed third in hospitality and event management and 8th in healthcare administration. Rylan Waters placed first place in advertising and 4th place in business management. Selena Vo placed 10th place in business law, and Ashlyn placed first place in business law and third place in business management. And why I wanted to highlight this group of students and the work that they've done is obviously it's fun to see their accomplishments and to bring home. They walked in my office at the end of the day and they were wearing their medals and they were so proud and excited to tell me about that. It's fun to see the accomplishments, but to me, that's such a great example of if we can just learn to say yes, our students are capable of amazing things. It would have been really easy for me to say, sorry, I don't have the money to pay an advisor. Sorry, we haven't done this for a long time. Let's maybe think about doing it next year. Like, I can think of so many ways in which myself or other adults would have said, good luck with that. But we said yes. And then we watched what happened. And I'm so proud of the work that they've done. And our student, it's a good reminder to me that this is your school. And you students have so much determination. You guys have willing to put in the hard work. And when you take the initiative, you're able to do exactly what we say our goal is for you, what we say our mission as a school is and as a district, which is to put you in the position, prepare you, give you the knowledge, give you the experiences so that you can chase your dreams. So thank you for being a good reminder to me about the importance of saying yes and supporting you because you guys are amazing. So congratulations to you specifically, Ashlyn, and your FBLA group, pretty awesome. Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on is I just want to give a big shout out to the entire Newberg High School staff. Having an interim principal can be a weird thing. It can be kind of like, oh, are we just going to kind of be in a stalemate situation for a year? But they challenged me at the beginning of the year of, hey, we don't care what your title is. Let's do good work. And they have done just that. And we've done some fun things. I'm hopefully going to have some more things to come back in the spring and share with you, some work we've been doing that hopefully you guys can help us on and maybe take some action on. So stay tuned, a little teaser there. But yeah, I'm just excited to be in this position, thankful for the opportunity, and just thankful to be here at Newberg because this is a good place.
Thank you, Mark. We'll open a question in the comments, but I actually have a question first. So BAR, is that like a national concept? I mean, where did we learn about it and how did we get to know about that and accept it or?
Yeah, several schools around the nation use it. It's there's programs like it all over the place. And one of our former administrators kind of got some information on it. And Tammy said, yeah, let's chase this. Let's go get it. And yeah.
I believe it was supported through a grant.
It currently is, yeah. Yeah, so we have grant funding to support the teachers putting in extra time outside of their contract time and to allow us to get some coaching from the BAR organization.
Nice, thank you. Anybody else have comments or questions?
I do. I love all the updates. I'm so impressed with what's going on. And off the top of your head, what is challenging right now? And what can the board do to support you in the school?
Yeah, I mean, challenges. Okay, I'll just say it. It'd be nice to have more staffing. It'd be nice to have more FTE,
Yeah.
right? I'm not gonna lie,
Say it.
right? I'm not gonna
Say
lie.
it.
Because our staff is working really hard and we have not let, what's happened over the past several years, the number of staff we've lost, we haven't let that get in the way, but I have staff members every day who are just tired. They're working really hard and they're putting in their own time and they're sacrificing a lot. And so I think that would help, not because it would make things easier, but because I think it would help the student experience be stronger. I think some of the challenges we continue to face, we do have some old facilities. Every single day we're working with, and our maintenance department is great. They're very responsive, but they just have to be so responsive because every day something's happening because they're just old facilities. And so I think the work we did in the last bond, and even as we're going after a levy here, just thinking ahead to, okay, what is our planning for hopefully a future bond look like, and not letting that get lost as we continue to move forward as a community. I think, students, we see increased challenges with mental health. We see a challenge thing. Students today have different experience. I'm not very old, but their experience today is much different than my experience was. Not by any fault of theirs, but just because of society, of technology, of just so many things that I don't know that we have caught up with yet as the adults. So we don't know how to manage it very well. And yet we're trying to support them and figuring out how to do life as a teenager and a high school student. And so just continued access to good care, but then awareness for all of us to continue learning what is life like today and how can we show up to support our students, not in the ways that we think they need support because we remember it, how we experience it, but because of the support they need based on how they're experiencing life today. Mhm.
Mark, thank you for the update. It's always good to hear about the positive things that are happening, especially as the dad of two high schoolers. I'm curious if we have any information, anecdotal or otherwise, from our alumni on how well they think their Newberg High School education has prepared them for whatever path they've chosen.
I don't know that I have a lot of, well, I would say this. Anytime we need something here at Newberg High School and I can't budget for it myself, this community steps up and says, yeah, we want to help with that. And without having the exact numbers of the data, I would say the majority of those people who are giving back to us are people who were students here themselves. And I think so many of our people, I'll highlight this just so you guys know, because you guys are the ones who did it. We named the wrestling room after the Russo family, and that was a really cool dedication. We had people fly back from Utah. We had people come from Montana. We had people drive up from California for that event. And I had a lot of conversations with people about, you know, they are who they are today, or they are successful because of what happened here at Newberg High School and their experience here. And they point not just to, you know, growing up in Newberg, but they point specifically to Newberg High School. So yeah, I don't have the official data, but I think if we wanted to get that, I know how it would come in. It would be overwhelmingly supportive of yes.
Any other comments or questions? I actually have one I thought about, because you were talking about some of the struggles or you know, things. Last year, Tammy implemented, or we implemented more cell phone policy, a little more stricter. This year, of course, it was backed up by the governor. How has the first, I was trying to look at the calendar, like how many months, we're getting close to halfway, like how has the first half of the school year gone with the cell phone?
It's gone really well. It's not gone perfectly, but it's gone really well. And I think we made the right move. Some districts, you know, it had to be implemented by January, right? That was the rule from the governor. We didn't wait. We just said, no, we'd rather start the year with the way it's going to be. That was the right move. I think trying to transition mid-year to the change would have been hard. Talking with other schools, I think we did a good job. We were pretty strong on it right at the get-go. We weren't punitive about it, but we were pretty firm and give good reminders. I will say, I think we've softened up a little bit in the fact that we're not looking to get kids in trouble with it. I think they're trying to get a little bit more brave about, you know, trying to have that earbud in there and hide their hair over it while they're walking down the hall, but they're super respectful when we remind them. And again, we're not being punitive about it. We're just giving reminders. Hey, remember this, these are the expectations while we're at school. And their kids are super respectful, very positive response from them. I do have evidence. We did a mid-year survey just in-house on our own from the leadership team with our staff. And overwhelmingly, staff said this has been, they have noticed a huge difference in student engagement in their participation level in classrooms, and staff are very excited that this is the expectation.
Okay, that was gonna be my follow-up question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last call. I think that's it for you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Cool, thank you.
Good job.
Dave, with boundary committee recommendations.
Tonight, I want to take some time to frame why we created the boundary committee, what we learned, and why now we believe we should slow down the restructuring. Upon entering the district last year, in 2024, the district started the year with a minus $1.2 million deficit. Dr. Radich and the entire district, they made very large cuts to get the district back into a place where we ended the year with a positive $1.6 million surplus. That was great work. It was hard work. It took all year long us kind of continuing to look at every single expense. And last spring, we raised that class size. The average class size, actual class size was somewhere around 20. And we raised, when we staffed it, we raised it to about 23 overall on the K5. But what happened was this fall, we started having multiple classrooms go up above 30. And so we ended up having to make a decision about, are we pushing in another teacher? Are we not? And so this problem that we had around class sizes it's a structural problem. One of the main reasons why we still are struggling getting kind of the staff set to right size our staff. And so that's why we set up the boundary committee is we needed to see if we could solve this structural problem. We have to raise class sizes in our elementary grades. Currently, they're lower, and because of this system, the fact that 4 of our schools have 2 or fewer teachers per grade level, there's no way for us to smooth out these class sizes. As I've been going around, I think I'm on meeting number 15 tomorrow. As I've been going around and talking to staffs and to parent groups, it kind of comes down to this one, when you look at the grade level, and let's say you have 27 kids in it and there's 2 classes, and you get there's 1 teacher, 27, we were staffing at 23, it's pretty close. You have 4 kids move in and now you're at 31 and you have this decision, do you leave it at 31 or do you split it? And if you split it, then you have 16 and 15. And that's our choice, is either it's 31 or it's 16 and 15. And it's this structural problem that's creating the problem for us. So our first thought was that these boundary adjustments might be enough. We need to get more kids per grade level. The committee quickly learned that that didn't solve our problem. The problem's not just where the lines are, it's the size of the grade level cohorts across too many sites. So we had to start considering models. At the same time that we're considering these models, I didn't mean to move that yet. Thank you. At the same time, we started considering these models, we're up against some kind of a real timeline, which is we can see the problems that we have this fall trying to equalize these class sizes. Fall of 2026 is coming. And so we're feeling real pressure to get some kind of reorganization. Tonight, I'm going to show you some models we've taken and we've gone through and looked at, like what's going to happen in our current system as we begin to raise class sizes. I'm also going to show you the restructure model that it will balance class size better. But it comes with major disruption. And I'll talk more about that, but the chaos that would be created by the logistics here in this very tight window from just now till August. If we're being honest, we're not going to be able to do that well. There's just too much work to be done. So again, I'm gonna go through it, but we're gonna talk about delaying this. We still have a problem to solve. So it's not like it's going away, but there are things that are happening here that may change our options, which is another reason why I think it's probably a good idea for us to slow down. So again, I'm just starting with the end, which is what we're going to recommend is that we not implement for 2026. We're going to talk about maybe more planning, more engagement, and more conversation about how we're going to solve this problem. But I just want to throw that one out there right at the beginning before we get going. So with that, I want to talk about what I want to cover tonight. So I'm going to go over kind of that estimate of the target again. I've been presenting this in many places and want to make sure that I'm talking about it with everybody who's listening at home. I've got some spreadsheets for you to look at that kind of will model our current system with an estimate of where we think we're going to need to be in the fall. And then I'm going to do that same modeling with, the restructure. So you can kind of see what it does for class sizes. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the challenges and, kind of some of the reasons around why we wanna delay. So, gonna start with, this is one I think you've seen too. We're just at the place where we're rolling over our provisional database and we're taking all of our salaries, we're adding the COLAs, we're looking at our utilities and what kind of increase we're gonna be. So right now, these are still very much estimates. So I want to start with that because these spreadsheets look they're very detailed. They're the same ones that we use when we actually staff. But they're still just estimates and none of these decisions have been made. The first line here is basically for us to continue to do school like we are this year, with class sizes that are lower, 21, at the elementary level. The middle school is actually a place where we probably need to do some work. Those class sizes are a little bit high. High school, I think, is not in a terrible spot. There are bubbles. There are definitely, especially like Singleton's classes, like advanced courses where there's only one of them, can often be have some really wild class sizes. But to restore the 5 days contract agreements of 2.29 million, we still have to bargain the classified contract. PERS bond, there's more information. Nate is going to talk in the next 2 board meetings about some of the challenges that the state of Oregon is going to have around PERS bonds. And then busing, we think the amount is going to be somewhere around, and that's why we put a greater than sign there. That's an estimate of where we're at. Next, in the middle there is basically for us to, again, run our system with a full calendar and begin to restore more ending fund balance. It's somewhere about 4.5 million is kind of where we're, again, that number will get more accurate as we start to move into the budget committee cycle. And then last, to get back to the ending fund balance of being at 7%, which is our board policy, we're somewhere about 7.4 million. So those are the areas. Now, when we start to staff, we're not going to pull all of the money won't come from staffing. So you're going to see when in just a second here, when we start looking at these spreadsheets, that it doesn't say 4.5. We did some early work on a whiteboard and came up with 2.9 about 3 million. That means that there's another 1.5 million that we'll begin to pull out of the district office. We'll begin to pull out of programs. We'll pull out of facilities. There's other places besides just elementary, middle school, and high school classrooms. So that I want you to understand a little bit about like where that number came from. Again, these are all just estimates. So with that, you're going to see in front of you a set of spreadsheets. One says at the top, current system licensed classroom, FTE calculations. And another thing is like, I'm orienting you to these sheets. I've set up meetings with all of you to sit down and meet, and we can talk and I answer questions individually about where all these numbers are and the rest. It's gonna get bigger here, folks. So in the center middle of the page there, what you're gonna see there is that for us to hit $2.9 million, it's a total FTE change of about 24. So out of the whole system, K-12, we have to pull 24 positions, 25 positions. That's gonna be massive. That is a huge, and again, when we actually get into the budget, that number will get more accurate, but it's not gonna be off by tons. So we've got some challenges out in front of us to get to this place. I keep doing the wrong thing. So then if you flip the page, you'll see basically the enrollments as they currently stand, as we're currently forecasting. They're in the green. And then you'll see kind of the staff allocation based on hitting that number of minus $2.9 million. And so this, if we're gonna hit that number, means that our class sizes are gonna look like this. Right, now there's some impossible numbers up there. What you'll see is, like, for us to hit this, that we almost certainly, this can't stand, like specifically JA 39, 39, 38. Anything over 30 is red here, and it's also on your sheet too, if you're looking for it. So 23 classrooms out of 56 go over 30. The 10 classrooms are under 20. And again, this is this issue that I've been talking about as we're going around, which is the small cohorts create these huge swings. They're either way up or way down. So big issues here in our current system as we move forward. So then what we did is we took that same model and we said, okay, we need to blend. And what the blend is the 0.5. It means that you're sharing a teacher across 2 grade levels. So on the lower table there, you'll see some different grade levels that are 1.5. So we're blending now. Again, same basic enrollment on the top. And then our class sizes come down. And we're now in a place where we've got 15 classrooms or about 25% or above 30. The 30s are also close to 30. There's 134. But again, this is the challenge that we're up against as we're moving forward in our current system. Now, before I move on, I'll take some questions if you have them about these tables.
Can I see how many blends there were with it?
Yeah.
And this is projected for next year's enrollment.
This has next year's enrollment. This is if that number is 2.9. I mean, there's a lot of things that we still have to figure out, but these aren't, I'm not off by a factor of, I'm not off by a ton.
Yeah.
This is again why we're feeling that pressure to for the restructure. So now I want to walk through with you what happens here under the restructure with the same basic thing. So the second paperclip is this restructuring model. And again, what you'll notice is we've got, I should have said this above, the current class size right now, I took it just today off of I think it was the December 1st enrollment. At the elementary level, we're averaging 20, that's across all schools. We're K5, 5-6, we're at 22. And then we're 27 and 27 at the others. This one is set at 26 at the K4, 27.5. The kids are now at CB. We staff them differently at that spot. 7th and 8th is 27.5, and then 9-12 is 31. Again, there's big increases everywhere. Again, the money is about 2.9 million is what we get out of this. And again, the total FTE that we're trying to get to is minus 25. This is our table kind of with the part of the restructure was the closing of Ewing Young. There was Edwards going to the only dual language piece. And again, what we find is we now have 8 classrooms over 30. 8 classrooms over 30 out of 50, or about 16%. There's about 10 classrooms out of 50 that are less than 20. So the restructure model works. I mean, it's doing what it say it's gonna do. It definitely, I mean, the base just here is the current model straight is 41%, 18. And then basically with each of the thing, when we blend, we just about cut it in half. And then we continue down with the restructure.
That's right, can you go back
Yeah.
to this one? So 8 classrooms over, is that for all levels? Cause I only count 4 on the K-5.
There's, in the table that has the bottom table there, there's a number of sections. So one red number might be two sections. So the red number may count for multiple classrooms. Hey, let me take one look here and I'll show you. So this, that number right there, it says there's 4 teachers and they're all 4 are averaging 31.5. So that's actually 4 classrooms over 30. That's why there's more of that.
Right, thank you.
Okay. So, so yeah, the model does what it says it's gonna do. The issue, I think, kind of comes around to, there's some pros here. The math works, financially responsible given the revenue constraints. Significantly improves class sizes. Reduces classes from, 41% of them to 16%. But the cons, the disruption. Closure of Ewing Young and conversion of Edwards is hugely, I mean, we heard very eloquent words about some of the concerns about turning Edwards into a dual language. I heard many had about 100 people last night at Ewing Young who were expressing the same basic concerns that we have. This transitions, we're increasing the transition for kids. That's not always the easiest thing. The community loss, again, the loss of these neighborhood schools. We heard it from our comments from our folks. We heard it last night from our Edwards, from our Ewing Young crew. Again, the loss of that neighborhood school is huge. And then displacement, moving, again, the English only students away from their neighborhood school across town is chaotic. So this is why we're looking at and we're suggesting that we should slow this down. Staffing, there's a massive shuffling of staff here. And our ability to kind of manage that over 3 or 4 months here while we're trying to put a budget together, that's just, I don't think it's gonna be possible. Culture, the merging of school identities, the creation of a new 5-6 school actually needs time. I had about it when we moved into a new middle school in Hillsborough. I had about 1.5 years to work with school teachers to build a new identity for the South Meadows Hots. And so there's a lot that goes into that kind of creation of a new school. Transportation, there's new routes, there's new things to do. Sped and services has also come up in several comments or just around, there's programs, specialized programs that we have at specific schools. Where are they going? What are we doing? So again, it comes back to this whole thing where the restructure and the work the boundary committee did, I think was excellent. Our issue is that we just don't have enough, we need more time to sit down and begin to look at how we're going to do this. So that's why I think tonight, I would suggest that we kind of look at a different kind of motion moving forward. And so I worked with others to kind of draft what I think might be smart for us. Other decisions that we might make could impact what we need to do. I do know that September 26th, without a levy to help us, is gonna be challenging. I can see what those numbers are. I know that the restructure that we've talked about would help, but we don't have enough time to do it well. And so I think What this says is I move that the Newberg Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors receive the boundary committee's recommendations of one set of options for a potential restructure. Direct the superintendent to continue planning for a district-wide reconfiguration fall of 2027. The superintendent will present to the board any details for consideration, including corresponding school boundary reassignment, staffing plans. So I think what we're saying is, I think you should direct me to continue to look, we've got to look at this problem no matter what. But I think there's some things that we need to put into place before we start, like really engaging. And there may be other ideas that emerge that time will give us access to. Like right now, we were feeling the pressure, we've got to do something, but with a little more time, there may be new options. And so there's nothing we need to do tonight, and we can, this is a draft, we can change it however you want, but I think that's what I'm suggesting now is I think you give me directions to keep working on this. Yes.
It was quite the brain trust in that room, the boundary committee.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hoping is that as new information becomes available, that brain trust can come back together, reconvene and come with new recommendations if new information becomes available to them.
I agree. Again, I think there's, as I've gone around and done these now 14 meetings, I think there's been what I've learned about our community is there's lots of creative ideas. And part of what was maybe limiting our ability was just how quickly we were trying to move. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to continue to engage folks. And like I said, I don't expect the spreadsheet was deep, so we'll meet in the next week and a half, and I'm happy to go through. And I mean, the good news is you'll see something similar when we actually get into the budget process, because we use the same basic sheet that staff for real.
So my only concern is levy or not, that's a separate path and discussion we're gonna talk about later. What I'm hearing is we wait for restructuring to fall 2027. But there's gonna be impact next year no matter what, and then there's gonna be another impact the next year. And then what Edwards just talked about, and then the other couple of meetings I've listened to over live, is about the impact that we've already gone through over the last several years. Before we go down this path, I think that we need to ask the staff, teachers, and the parents, all same survey, different surveys. Do they want to ride this out for 2 years, or do they want one movement? And I know I've been a big proponent of trying to get this to a new status quo sooner than later. I don't want to have to deal with this over the next 2 years of having more and more. Now, there's always gonna be new stuff coming up, but like right now, you're already proposing. Again, if levy fails, we're gonna have to do this and give us another year and have options. There's still gonna be a lot of change, it looks like to me. And I don't know. In the public forums, there's been a lot of conversation, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of community connections, and I get that. But I think if you take that away, we need to just ask teachers, staff, and everybody else, will they write this out for another 2 years? And I'm gonna guess you're gonna have probably a 50-50 split. Some people are gonna want to, let's get it done now, because I can't have this anxiety and stress for 2 more years. I'd rather just have it one more time. Put a little bit of extra effort into this summer. They've already done a lot the last 2 summers, but let's do one more, and then I'm if we're gonna be on a good path, then that's what I choose. Versus doing it over 2 years. Again, the levy could still change things, but we just have to frame in mind of this specifically. Like that's what I'm hearing, and that's I guess.
So I think 2 thoughts are jumping into my brain there. One is that I don't think we can do the restructure. I don't think we have enough time to do it well. And so no matter what, I think we're heading into next year. I mean, this is we add staff and cut staff every year. We're adjusting constantly to our enrollment. So the process isn't new to us. Again, for us to get back to financial stability though, that's gonna be there. It's gonna be there no matter what. Once we're at this place where we don't believe that we can do this restructure well, I think we're now in the place where we have to take a look at, and there are decisions coming up here that could change this. So I think you're kind of directing me, receive as one set of options. That kind of points at the fact that there may be other options for us as we begin to think deeper and take a little more time with this. I don't know what those are right now because again, this staffing, it's complicated. I'm not gonna sugarcoat the fact that, because I'm gonna talk about it next, which is this levy, which is, one way or another, we need additional revenue, or there's gonna be some kind of change happening, in our district. I mean, that part is, the numbers are there. So I hear you. I just think that, again, no matter what, we have a couple of months here and things are gonna happen. And then we're gonna be given a new set of options. Well, I don't know what those are yet, but, from there, we'll start working.
What new information will be coming that will inform the new options in the next couple of months?
The one will be the second decision that we're gonna talk about here, which is if you put a levy up on there, that changes what's available to us. And that's why we're bringing it.
I think one of the, main intentions of the boundary committee was to involve the community, increase transparency, all those things that we care so much about, hearing lots of different opinions. And while that boundary committee was an incredible group of people and we're so grateful for that, I think what I have seen attending some of the boundary committee meetings at the schools, and I think what Dave has experienced, is that there are so many more opinions out there than just that committee that are valid and are worth hearing. And I too worry about I don't think that we could pull off a restructure between now and September. And I think that I'm coming out that with a, experience of being in schools and knowing how hard it is to make big changes like that. I think that if we tried to do it quickly, even if we may feel like maybe it is inevitable, maybe we do have to do this eventually, I feel like doing it quickly is going to decrease our trust in the community. Because I don't think that it would give us enough time to fully communicate with our community and to fully hear what they have to say. And I would hope that, over the course of the next year, if we find ourselves still in the position of seriously considering this restructure, I would hope that, the boundary committee would continue to meet, that these community meetings and discourse would continue, so that everybody, by the time we get to this massive thing that will disrupt people's lives and will be very disruptive to our students, by the time we're there, we feel like we have really done, like we have excavated out, we've looked at every single corner, we've heard every voice possible. That would be my hope in the event that we're still doing this at this time next year.
I'd like to say too, I think we should reframe it from whether people can hold on for 2 years to more of what I'm hearing is just that we shouldn't rush a decision this big. I think there's a lot more data points. I agree. I think the brain trust of the boundary committee looks amazing. But I also think there's more data out there, one of which will be the data and opinion of the voter base as expressed in a levy, what they want. And that's a huge bit of data that will affect that decision. But also I think there's other things like the letter and, what we hear from Edwards. I think there's a lot of things that may not have been considered in that initial boundary committee. I love the idea of reconvening a boundary committee again once we have more data. But I mean, there were some points I think that weren't as well considered, at least when I was there on the boundary committee, about the bond and the capacity of Edwards, and some of the trends in those. I'm going to be honest, I don't love the idea of making it the dual language only. I don't think that's sustainable either. I think there are other options to consider, but I think that it's hard to consider that if we know how the community is gonna speak on a levy, you know, what they're, that's going to, I think, really tell us where the community is, where the voter base is, and because, to be frank, that, you know, what we're hearing is that people want to keep the model that we have. And that comes out of wallets, right? That comes out of all of it, and that's how they're gonna speak. If that doesn't work, then I think that gives us one set of data. So I'm looking at it, like, I hear what you're saying, and yeah, I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off too, but I think, you know, it's not that we're delaying the decision 2 years. I mean, we're gonna know in May, one huge bit of this, where the community stands on a levy. And then it gives time, we're giving, Dave and the staff time to do, based on that information, what that needs to look like.
If we, if the levy doesn't pass, do our classrooms fit 40 fourth graders?
We won't, that's an impossible number. We won't do that. We'll have to blend. And again, pushing in a blend is a cost too, so we'll have to, well, I mean, this is a shell game. As you begin to push in more staff, we're gonna have to take it from somewhere else, but that's again, all stuff that we'll cover as we do the budget committee, as we start to look at how we're going to get to the number.
And do the teachers want to teach blends?
Well, we have some in the crowd. You know, here's what I've gotten to ask that question out in my set of trips, and it's interesting because our teachers conquer. They make it happen. Now, is it the best way that we could instruct? I don't think so. But we had wonderful folks talk about, I mean, in Ewing Young, they've been blending forever. They've had to. Other schools have done it. Our teachers are great. They're gonna make it work no matter what happens, but I don't think that would be their first priority.
My daughter's in a newly blended class right now, and we as parents were a little concerned when we got that first email and told, but they're doing great. The teachers are doing great. The kids are also really, really great kids in our community, and they're doing well.
I think a couple of thoughts. I appreciate that we can honor the work that the boundary committee has done by considering the set of recommendations. I think personally that and I appreciate kind of pumping the brakes a little bit, because I know a couple of things to be true. If we move forward with this current set of recommendations, I believe we would be doing some unethical things in this community. And I appreciate the comment that we heard tonight. The way I think about it is one of the recommendations is essentially to resegregate Edwards Elementary in some way. And I think we all need to think long and hard about that. And there were several good recommendations that we heard tonight there. So pumping the brakes is good. I'm gonna butcher the quote, but one of my favorite quotes is by Meg Wheatley. She says something about the power of a community is realizing the power that people have when people come together around something they're interested in, right? I really butchered that. One thing I know about this community over the last 6 years is that we have come together around our schools, right? I have no doubt that we will continue to do that. I appreciate the number of people who came out and listened to Dave and asked some really good questions. I look forward to seeing those questions, the frequently asked questions. I look forward to continuing to think about this, because I think we have a pretty well-defined problem, but I'm not convinced that we found a well-defined solution. And I think we owe it to ourselves to continue to engage our community to kind of go slow there. I don't know what next year will look like. I think we're gonna learn, you know, with the levy. I also am very interested in, you know, we've talked before publicly about part of the problem is cutting expenses. Part of the solution is increasing revenue. And I think, just my last comment on this, we have to revisit the issue of reattracting folks to Newberg schools. Because I also know this, I had a conversation on Sunday with a parent in the community who said he would likely pull one of his children from the district if we were to close a school. And I know he's not alone in that. This district will lose more students if we act sooner. Instead of coming up with a thoughtful set of solutions, which we engage the community with and involve our community even more. So, I think being an attractive community where people continue to want to enroll their students, is something that we need to wrestle with.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the second part of the recommendation now. And so on this, I think we just need to let this sit. I'll set up meetings with everybody. If there's changes you want to the language, I'm totally open to making it more what you want, but we can think about that a little bit. And then I think you should direct me to do something out of this. So that's about all I would say. I think you should tell me what you want me to do here. Next, I want to talk about the second recommendation coming out of the boundary committee, and that was, hey, more revenue changes the options that we have. In 1999, the Oregon legislature gave school districts the ability to ask local voters to pass a local levy in order to supplement a loss of funding in the wake of measures 5 and 47. A number of districts in Oregon have successfully passed local option levies, including some of our neighbors like Sherwood, Beaverton. They will tell you that this has been a critical revenue stream to ensure classrooms and buildings are staffed, class sizes are manageable, and students have the supports they need to succeed. Tonight, we're bringing forward a local option levy resolution because we have reached a point where the progress we're making, you heard Mark tonight talk about the forward progress that we're making in the district. We're seeing it in our elementary schools. There's a very positive vibe that's going on. Things are moving forward. But we can't maintain the stability with our current revenue stream. So we're proposing and calling this levy the Newberg Schools Levy. Here's the truth. Our current organization's working. We've made hard adjustments. We've cut 76.75 folks from the organization. We put in internal controls in the business office. Every single time someone's leaving the organization, we're asking, do we need to replace this person? We're saving every dollar that we can. But even with all of these kind of challenges, our schools are producing results. You can feel it in the buildings. There's a better tone, stronger momentum, and positive day-to-day experience for students and staff. We're headed in the right direction. The things that we talked about just a second ago feel like they're taking us in the wrong direction. And so we have a financial reality we can't ignore. Even with the progress we've made, we're not building an ending fund balance. That's my problem right now, is because of this structure, I'm not building cash balance. I'm not putting cash in the bank. And we've got to cut to get to that spot, or we need more revenue. We've got to rebuild the financial cushion that every stable school system has to absorb surprises, plan responsibly, avoid repeating annual cycles of disruption. Without additional revenue, the path in front of us is really predictable. I mean, we've been through it. We already know what this looks like. Deeper cuts, larger class sizes, fewer options for kids, more instability. Even if we're doing everything right, that's still gonna happen. At our last meeting, I presented the current local option levy rates in surrounding communities and the impacts those levies had. We know taxes are real for families. We do not dismiss that for a second. But we also believe there's room in this community to make a targeted investment in our schools that protects what is working and keeps moving forward. The amount that we're proposing tonight, you'll see it coming up here. I'm gonna go through the resolution. It's gonna be $1.20 per thousand. That's lower than every other district around. Most of them are $1.50. Beaverton's at 125. We're coming in at 120 because we believe that it's a number that works for us. But it also is trying to balance that, like we're trying to be sensitive to the fact that we know everybody's bills are going up. Strong schools are not just a school issue, they're an economic development strategy. They are one of the main reasons families come to move here, why property values will remain strong, why local businesses can recruit and retain their workforce. When schools are unstable, the community feels it. When schools are thriving, the entire community benefits. Tonight, we presented models of challenges we believe we'll see in our buildings. The Newberg Schools Levy is a tool available to us to stabilize those services, rebuild a responsible fund balance, and stay on a positive course. So in front of you is the resolution that we have. I'm not gonna read them all, but I want to orient you to kind of the way that they work. The first four paragraphs there basically speak to the work that we've done, which is where we've been. The issue of a year and a half ago, we were minus 1.2, a negative ending fund balance. We're made multiple budget reductions. We've cut staff, administration. So those first four bullets are really all around how we got here and what we've done to correct it. The next three bullets are all about our current situation and what we believe it will cost to secure that future. The local option at $1.20, we believe will generate right at $6 million, $6.1 million. It's over a 5-year period. It expires in a 5-year period. Currently, we're not planning on expanding with this money. We're planning on paying for the teachers that we have now and then beginning to build that financial stability. The next three paragraphs are the accountability measures, annual audits, establish a specific fund for levy collections to allow for detailed. All funds will be used exclusively for school-based staff, licensed teachers for Newberg students. No administration. The next, the first one on is the first, be it resolved, is the declaration of the $1.20 per thousand. And then the last four bullets are really the where we set up when the levy is and kind of the legal elements. This has been reviewed by a bond attorney, and he's given us his. We've already made the corrections to it so that it agrees legally. And then the third page is really the I got behind. Sorry. The sample language, and it's basically, there's a caption in the sample ballot title, 10 words, a question, and then there's a summary. And because there's word limits, like every word here has been chosen very specifically. And there's still a couple of little edits that we're working on, but I'll have those outlined when they come back, when it comes back to you, but there's nothing substantial that we're looking at changing. But this is the levy, the Newberg Schools levy that we would like you to take action on. Hopefully the next time that we're here so that we can get this onto a ballot. What this levy would mean for me, we can have this discussion, but when I think about this levy passing, this is kind of what I mean, which is we don't close Ewing Young. We don't make Edwards a dual language only. It maintains a neighborhood school. We still are gonna have to manage class size, and I've heard really clearly as I've been out in these meetings that we still want to have a conversation about how do we improve our structure. And specifically, I think I've heard that middle school is a place that we really want to have some conversations. So that's still, we have to do that. Just passing the levy doesn't mean that we're not going to do anything. We've heard this quite clearly. We won't be hiring more administration with this cash. 100% of it, of the levy will be used to pay teachers and then build back financial stability. We're not expanding. I think a mistake that we could make is that the money comes in and then we begin to buy more. And that's not what we need to do. What we need to do is run our system, keep our class sizes, and build any fund balance. That's the goals that we have out in front of us. We'll place in a separate account. I think we fire up the Citizens Budget Committee to provide quarterly reports on just how is the money being used and are we being, if the community votes to approve this, we want to make sure that we're showing them that we're spending it in a way that's valuable, which is keeping those class sizes not 26, but closer to 22, 20, so I don't know where they'll end up, but what I do know is that where we're headed is going to be a lot, without it, we're going to be in a much, much higher class size.
Now, I mean, are these just being presented and we take action next?
Yeah.
Meeting, or?
Yeah, I want to make sure that everyone in the community gets a chance. I have a communication that I'll push out to the staff and to our parents surrounding that we're slowing down. And then I also want to get out information about the levy. And then February 10th would be where we take action.
Just a logistics question, if we are able to pass this in May, when does that tax actually kick in for property owners? Is it January 1 or is it July?
Maybe the next tax season. So we issue the notice of the levy to the county in July, and they do it in October when they provide assessed values and taxes for that year.
So for budgeting reasons, then this May, we'll know kind of mid-end budget season for us, but then.
So our third optional budget meeting is May 19th, which is the primary election.
That's the day of.
So we will have to have adopted a budget prior to that.
Okay.
So
I think the plan was always to bring back a supplementary, if that does pass, we bring back a supplementary budget, but kind of, I think we're gonna have to have like parallel planning, like what happens without, what happens with, if you choose to take action.
And then in the event that if it passed, then that gap of funding for the school year between, July 1 and October when it starts is not significant enough to cause, we would still be getting enough.
yeah, we still get state school fund payments in July, and we'll have fund balance. So we'll have that carries along with it. We start receiving property, well, I'll talk about it later, but we start receiving property taxes in late October, November time.
My other question that's sort of my immediate, the beginning of the levy process. My other concern that I've been thinking about a lot is sort of the end of the levy, right? The end of the 5 years and what we do over the course of the 5 years so that we can continue on, or is it that we intend to, like, how soon into the 5-year process would we intend to communicate to our community that we would want to renew a levy or do, some of the communication that I received from community members is a concern that, okay, well, we do this now and then we just re-up it every 5 years, so we have this tax forever, or we do it for 5 years and then we're in this same situation in 5 years where we're looking at another huge.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us a bit about that process and?
So what I would say is I can see a pathway where this could expire. And the reason that I see that pathway is we don't expand with this money. As we build any fund balance, we can begin to move teaching out of the levy and back to the general fund because that pending fund balance is there. So but us forecasting next year's budget, there's about a $750 million deficit at the state right now. So we're hearing that they may dip into the rainy day funds, but we'll have to see. February, I think next week is when the short session starts. Trying to forecast 3 years from now is, really, I mean, we've started to play with some forecasting, but it's a little dicey. But I do think that we're working with that in mind, that we should be thinking about how we exit this. And but there's so many things that are gonna go into this, and I think that's also maybe part of having the Citizens Budget Committee to kind of continue to talk about this as year 1, year 2 goes on. Cause that's gonna make a big difference in what year 4 and 5 look like.
Yeah, and I know that it's next to impossible to forecast that, but I like the idea of having the Citizens Budget Committee come back into that, and I would encourage us to have some plan or some expectation that we can communicate now. This is our plan to stay in touch with our community so that they know that we're at least thinking about it now. We can't say for sure,
Yeah.
and we know that. But I think that that's some of the initial feedback that I'm getting is people either concerned about it going on forever, being forced into it forever, or finding ourselves in the same situation in 5 years.
If we, is this saying if the levy passes okay, I'm thinking about 20 years of declining enrollment. The forward ahead is declining enrollment, just even if we just based on birth rates, regardless of our performance. Is this saying in the next 5 years, we stick with our current model, or is this saying, we continue to work on figuring out how to manage decreasing enrollment?
I think what it says is we stay in neighborhood schools. But we will continue to have to look at, class size, structure and the rest.
It will probably be blends, right?
Maybe, again, we're blending this year where our class sizes are at 20 point whatever. And we have some blends because we have some bubbles in some different places. But, all in all, we're not in a terrible spot. But again, we've had this question as I've been around, which is, it doesn't mean that we're just gonna get the levy and sit still, because we won't be able to. There's still lots of things. I will also tell you that the last 4 or 5 years, our kindergarten classes have been pretty consistent. So it isn't that we're gonna decline forever. It's the larger classes in the high school graduating out that's creating the decline. But we do see that leveling right now. I mean, we're starting to see, I can see that down the road here that enrollment decline should level out. I will also say what Andy said, which is, I heard quite clearly from multiple folks, is like having a more active plan and letting people know what's going on in our schools so we can begin to attract some people back. It has been more stable. We have been less, until this moment, we've been less wrong, so, I think there's some work that can be done there too.
I'll also comment along with that, like, I think that, yes, we should obviously be looking somewhat at 20 years from now, I don't love the idea of closing schools. But I also wanna just make sure that we're not trying to solve every problem forever. Because, as Dave's saying, enrollment can change. I mean, yeah, it's been going down for 20 years, but before that it was going up, right? When some of us were in school, it was a much different picture, and when our kids are our age, it could be a completely different picture. So Newberg's growing. Mind you, on Austin, there's a huge development coming in. There's more getting put in. Newberg's growing, and so that can also, besides just birth rates, things can change that are well beyond our control. So, I think, and also like you said, the looking 5 years ahead, what the state's going to do, I mean, we can only do what's in front of us and try to manage it as it comes without trying to solve every problem.
I think my thought is, to your point about, are we gonna come back in 5 years? After 1 year, we are past our 2.5% thought on ending fund balance. We're gonna get up to where our policy says we should be in 2 years, that would mean. And just, assuming we don't make terrible decisions, and grow, when we're not trying to grow, I don't see how we would be in that position to need that, even with changing enrollments, because we'll have the ability to be fluid with situations as they come. I think that's really important, that I think that should be the goal. In terms of how we present this, that it isn't something where we're gonna decide in 3 years, everybody get ready for it again. That said, maybe people in our community say, this is great. We like investing a little bit more because the state's not necessarily always coming in and doing what we're hoping the state's gonna do for our schools. And at least, I think that in 5 years, assuming we, stick to this plan that's laid out in the way that we would put this on the ballot, I like to believe that we can build back that trust in a way that makes sense by living within our means, in terms of coming back from the situation we've been in. So, I get the fear that once you start something like this, you always continue. I would like to suggest that we make sure that we're not presenting this in a way that says that. And I don't know why we would, if we live within inside of our means, while we're able to grow this back to where we were. I still like to believe, after I've asked a few times, if we didn't have 2 years ago, the financial issues, would we be here asking for this? Would we be in a situation where we have to talk about having a boundary committee? So, inflaming that we're having this kind of meeting. I don't think we would. I think that's the answer that I've gotten. So I hope that that isn't a concern that people hear when we start talking about this, because I don't believe it should be, but maybe I'm ignorant in that thought.
I also really like the language, that you're using, Dave, about this being a targeted investment and investing in our town, and, that, that this will continue to help Newberg grow and property values grow, and I think that language is going to be really effective with our community. And perchance with that growth and that positivity, that will help us bring families back to Newberg, or attract families to Newberg for the first time to raise their children and to send their kids to school here. So I really do like that, that language and that angle there.
I have a question, just my own ignorance about levies and how this process works. Is 5 years locked in? We can't go shorter than that, we can't go longer than that, it's 5 or nothing?
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And I'm kind of to Saul's questions earlier, I'd love to hear a little bit about how we landed on $1.20, because the slide that you presented earlier, Dave, talked about 4.5 million being our goal. And I recognize that wasn't a fully, a full 7% ending fund balance. But this would raise 6 or more million per year. And so, I'm curious how we ended up at $1.20, knowing that several districts are higher than us. I'm sure some people would make an argument of, well, why not just ask for even more, right? Like, to be on par with other districts. I can see other people being like, why not $1 per 1,000 if that gets us what we need?
Yeah.
So
So we pulled this, and in the polling, so we pulled this, the polling was basically 125. At 150, it wasn't as popular, and specifically it made some folks very head towards no. The second thing was likely, we're in the spot. My estimations of where our target is, we think those are the best numbers I have right now. But to be honest, we're in a spot. If I can pull right now more money into that ending fund balance, we are able to run our schools, and I build more safety quicker. That's a very powerful thing. Nate and I don't sleep a lot, because every time 20 kids don't show up, we're like, oh, we do not have any cushion. We're counting every dollar right now. So the 120 was a number that we felt that one, polled well. And then two, we felt like it was less than everybody else, but it was still an amount that would help us get to that financial sustainability. So that's where we came to.
That's really helpful to hear the logic behind it.
Yeah. Okay, that was a lot from me tonight. I'm sorry. We will, I think, like I said, I've set up meetings with everybody over the next week or two. All the questions that you have or anything that's coming in, let me know. If you have questions ahead of time, if you send them to me, I'll make sure that I'm answering them thoughtfully. And I do have more information to get out to you just from as I'm been doing these community meetings, so I will share those with you. It's been busy.
Also want to thank you for doing those community meetings. I've heard from many families how grateful they are for them, so I know you are exhausted. But thank you very much.
I will tell you, I thought our parents were awesome. It was hard. There were some really tough questions that were asked. But I thought everybody really came at this with a heart to help and problem solve. So even with the tough questions, it was actually a really positive experience, I think, for me to hear from folks. So I'm glad it happened. So.
Thank you, Dave. So with that, looks like we're moving to,
Do a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
You know, for about an hour and a half before we dive into the follow.
sure, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so let's come back at 7:36, 7:31 right now.
That's
Oh, there's
Okay, we're gonna call the school board session, or back into session. And so next up is, Director Nichols for policy updates, and this is first reading.
Whoa. All right. We have policy updates from our policy committee. And we have been, as you are very well aware, working through our list from OSBA that you need to get caught up on, all of our updates. Some of them we do because they are the most urgent that OSBA communicates to us. Others we do because they are most relevant to our staff and our community. So we will roll through these tonight. In your packets, they should be in the same order that I will be talking about them, but please yell at me if I get off course. You can see in your packets, for the most part, our original policy that we had, and then the new updated version with the edits. The majority of the new updated versions that we see are the OSBA model sample policy that have been edited by their legal, looked at by our teams here. So that's where a lot of those edits come from. And then those sample policies, of course, come with options. And that is something our policy committee goes through very carefully when we have an option. The optional text is always in brackets. So those are the considerations that we have. So our very first one tonight is policy BBF. And that is board member standards of conduct. For this one, it was last updated for us in Newberg in 2019. And we are updating it to the OSBA model policy. The main difference between our previous policy and the updated one is that it actually includes information. You can see number 22 on the sample policy. Is that it includes information on board members being mandatory reporters, which was not in our previous board policy. So we were pleased to see that. I think that's an appropriate thing for a school board director to be. So that is the main difference on policy BBF. Any questions? Okay. The next policy is policy BCBA. That is policy for student representatives on the board. And this policy for us was also last updated in 2019, and it is something that our policy committee was happy to see come before us, because if you remember, our board had a fairly robust conversation last year on the process for electing students as representatives to the board. So for this one, there was discussion and a bit of editing. We did change the policy to say that we can elect up to 3 positions, kind of giving us some flexibility there. And then this policy was provided to us with 2 options. One was that the board only works together to kind of control the process, set the process for electing these student reps. And the other one was kind of superintendent only. And we chose to combine those. So essentially we would like the board and perhaps the personnel to put in some work to help set that process up in a way that we feel like better reflects our intentions and better reflects the student body, so that we can continue to attract some really incredible students to be part of our board. That this year, that subcommittee or the personnel committee would work to help develop an AR for the process. So the AR then would be sort of the superintendent's responsibility to make sure that that's happening. The board will still select the board representatives, the student representatives, but we felt like this update gave some clarity and was in line with the discussions that we were having last year around the time of electing the student reps. The other update to the policy is that it does include in the policy the actual oath that the students say when they are being installed on the board. Any discussion on this one? I know this was sort of a relevant topic for us as a board, so give you a second to read it, and then if you have any questions or comments. Or if you don't, that's okay too.
I had a question.
Yeah.
The oath, is that a new, added? Because I do not recall making an oath.
Yeah, your first meeting, you had an oath.
We did.
Okay, good to know.
I think you guys all did it, and then you guys each went down the line and said your name.
Okay, good to know.
Your first one, I think.
I'm sorry, are we sure what they did? I know we do it, but I don't think they did it. I think, did it? Let's go back and watch that video.
We're gonna go back.
Okay.
And if not.
Cool, that's your assignment. You go back, look at that video.
Let us know. It was fake this whole time, Cole. How do you all feel about, like forming a subcommittee or assigning this work to the personnel committee? Does anyone have any thoughts or questions or ideas?
Well, we haven't adopted this policy to determine that yet, right? So.
We have not, but if we are free to discuss policy during the first reading, so.
That's not part of the policy, it's practice. Of what to do after, I mean, so to me, there's two separate things. One, there's the
Yeah.
policy. And then once we adopt it, then we can look and talk about what do we do next year? Because we definitely already said we wanted to get much earlier in the process before May, right? By May, we should probably have somebody selected or whatever, type things.
Yeah, so the intention of this part, and you can, in the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph there. So the superintendent, in collaboration with the board, will develop the AR, the administrative regulations to include the application selection. So that in collaboration with the board is an addition by us to this policy. So if we are, I mean, that would be second reading of this to adopt it, that would mean that we are committing ourselves as a board to doing that work this year. And that work, the policy committee is suggesting would come from either a subcommittee or from the personnel committee. So between now and when this is hopefully adopted after the second reading, if you have any comments or questions or concerns about committing ourselves to more work or committing the personnel committee to more work on this process, feel free to send them over or bring them up. All right, the next one on our list is policy DJFA. And this is use of credit cards, last updated 2006.
Looks like the updated one's not in our packet.
Looks like the updated one is not in our packet. Nate, you did some work on this one. And OSBA legal went back and looked at it.
DJFA it's the little short one. That's our current. And then the one above it, the longer one is actually,
The new,
I don't know, it's got the revised adopted. Is this?
Yeah, I think it's,
the updated one is the longer one?
Yep.
that's right.
That's the one we should be looking at to adopt the updates.
Yeah, the really short one's the old one.
Okay.
Okay.
And this was one that we, Nate worked on a lot, and then it was sent back to OSBA legal to triple check. Nate, do you have any comments on it?
No, just that it was necessary.
Yes.
To add some detail here. And the AR that's gonna be, that will implement outside of this, which is essentially the manual that we get for credit card or credit card users. And also an agreement that they sign. Well.
So this is specific, just to make sure we're clear, this is specific to a credit card that's a district issued credit card and not like a personal one to get reimbursed from.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have district credit cards?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, I was thinking debit cards, but I didn't know about credit cards.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
interesting.
They're called P cards, procurement cards. So we have a master control over a bunch of cards. Monthly limits, and they still have to follow purchasing procedures, just like we do with other purchases with checks or purchase orders. But there's a higher risk with credit cards of misuse, so.
Could have a future financial discussion about how that works.
Yeah,
If you want.
I remember.
Yeah.
What was that? I didn't hear.
Oh, he was just pointing out there's some things in here that's.
Essentially using it
Yeah,
as a debit card, but it's paid in full at the end of the month before the
Oh, yeah.
So that,
Yeah, a debit card is direct access to a bank account, so a debit card doesn't happen, there's no stop. A credit card, we get billed monthly for transactions. And we pay a bill versus them having direct access.
I appreciate that, thank you.
All right, the next policy in front of you is policy EBVA. And this is a student health services policy. Our previous policy, EBVA, you can see was named first aid. It's recommended from OSBA that this, old policy, first aid, is deleted and replaced with the student health services policy. That, the student health services policy aligns more properly with, Oregon law. The district is required to maintain a list of current employees that are required to have, first aid, CPR, AED. And that is in accordance with Oregon law, so that one sort of relates to the previous first aid policy. But this is an update from OSBA. Again, to delete the previous policy and replace with student health services policy.
Is this regarding the, wellness center?
No. It is not. It is, I mean, the wellness center, I think, would come into practice in this, but no, this is regarding the health services that we are required to kind of manage and maintain as a district for our students. It references, you know, all sorts of health screenings, immunizations, students with medical needs. And then it also references that, you know, first aid, who does that. Thank you. Anyway, it's, I think, confusing because we refer to our student health center with student health services, but not. This is not a policy for that, building in the over there. Questions, comments, complaints?
Yeah, I actually do, just to clarify this better, because one of us first aid is very specific to first aid, now this one gets it down. A half a page of policy down to one small bullet point and bullet point 12, and my reading this. So the way the old policy worked is that basically anybody can self-administer first aid, but now we're restricting it to only people that are first aid certified essentially. I know CPR and EAD cards, but the way I'm reading that is that's team, so there's an employees in the building, so I'm reading the old one right now, our birthday cards. For every 60 students. Okay, so, is there gonna be an AR around it, so the kind of maybe what was in the old first aid to be kind of brought forward, like, or a manual? And I do like the fact that like for every 60 students in a school or a building, there should be at least one first aid, you know, person and staff member registered, you know, or trained or whatever. And so to me, I mean, I like this policy as a whole, but it almost minimizes or I think, I don't know, I think we can call it first aid better, and maybe, and that's, I guess my question is, there an AR around this, or is there more about a policy manual around this?
So the next,
Sorry, in the middle of the first paragraph of the one that we're presenting tonight, it says a health services plan shall be developed, implemented, and updated annually. So perhaps that's what you're referring to, Jeremy, about something that's in more detail?
Yeah, I guess, I just don't want to lose sight of that.
the next policy after this, though, is also emergency plan and first aid.
Well, there you
So
go,
it
this,
kind of combines.
this,
Yeah,
okay, so this, okay,
yep, and that includes.
I'm good.
Actually, so also in here, it says in accordance with this OAR 5810222220.
Yep.
Parentheses 3, that, I just looked up that OAR and that includes that same language that is no longer in there. It talks
Yeah.
about one for every 60. So
Okay, great.
that's in there in the OAR.
And then the next policy, if that's what we're looking at too, also states the same 60 ratio.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm good now.
okay, all right. So student health services aligns with way more OERs and kind of expands the first aid policy. And then the next one you'll see is policy EBC. Previously, the policy was double coded, so it had two names, which was EBC and EBCA, which was emergency procedures, disaster plans. The new policy directed under OSBA is policy EBC, and it's emergency plan and first aid. So it actually takes some of that first aid from the previous policy and codes it into this one. I think the previous policy's code is now generally accepted throughout the state to be student health services and not first aid. So this is giving first aid a place with emergency planning.
Yeah.
You can see that it has the CPR AED card, first aid for every 60 students in there. We obviously maintain emergency plans that are in line with the State Board of Education, that the copies of the emergency plans are available. This is moving some of that first aid information over and also clearing up our policy coding to be coded in line with OSBA. Moving along. Okay, the next policy is EBCB. This is emergency procedure drills and instruction. Our previous policy was just called emergency drills. The previous policy was updated in 2020. This is one that came out as an updated policy from OSBA just this last spring, April 24. No, 2 springs ago, April 24. So this is one that OSBA has updated and has asked all districts to update to their new language. We were given some options in here, mostly surrounding tsunamis. We are not in a tsunami hazard zone, so we're not required to keep tsunamis we're not required to drill for tsunamis. And there is updated language in there about safety threats and how we practice those as a district.
So question on this one, did we add the main highlighted sentence in the first section, the first emergency evacuation drill will be conducted within 10 days of the beginning of class, because we removed on the new one, on the suggested one. So I see we deleted that the district will conduct a monthly fire drill, at least one fire drill held in the first 10 days. So it's similar, but one's an emergency evacuation versus a fire drill. And so
I believe the gray highlighting is.
It's all the
addition-
lawyers.
That's the lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is, yes, we used to say one fire drill within the first 10 days, and now they're called emergency evacuation drills.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
Is there a difference in the way that we would do that at schools? What we would call an emergency evacuation drill compared to?
We have different drills that they do as far as fire drill and then the
Lockdown, evacuation. Typically, when we do a fire drill, we also with that.
Yeah. Well, it's also like gas leaks or,
I guess I'm just
The
trying
manner
to
in which-
see, does a fire drill count as an emergency evacuation?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, policy GBEB. Communicable diseases in schools. So your new policy is updated to, your new policy is OSBA. It covers students and staff and aligns with OHA guidelines. The previous policy was communicable diseases specific to employees. So we are taking a student, now the policy has student and staff language. This one was last readopted in 2011.
Did the OSBA give a reason on why the inclusion of students in this? No, okay.
This is just their recommended edits.
The next policy is policy IGBAG, Special Education Procedural Safeguards. This policy was last updated in our district in 2010. The new policy includes a lot of new legal information from OSBA. It also includes a new section on parent access to records. And this policy was also looked at by our SPED team.
I guess I have a question. I guess it's, I mean, I understand it's just highlighting or reiterating the fact that a parent is entitled to examine the records, et cetera. But doesn't all parents and not just special education parents?
I believe that there are
The
special provisions.
procedural safeguards, so you're correct. But in particular, they're talking about procedural safeguards with the access to records. I think they're drawing that specific.
Okay.
The second half of that sentence, yes, you're entitled to all reasonable time to examine all the records, but it's evaluation and educational placement of a child and provision of faith. So again, they're drawing that specific to you have access to these. Yes, you're right. I mean, you have access to all records, but I think they're trying to draw that distinct connection.
Yeah. Is faith, is that FAPE, is that specifically only addresses special education?
Specifically around free and appropriate public education, yeah. There's a very distinct, we have Stephanie Kalpa, or the lawyer at WSD here, but yes, faith is there's a distinct legal definition of faith with regard to special education.
Yeah. Like I just look at those words in general, that, I mean, I think that's, in this cover everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I just boggles me a little bit why it's so specific to just special education. Yeah, I'm good. Just
The next policy is policy IKJ, and this is the policy on artificial intelligence that we have been discussing sort of on and off throughout the year, and we have amazing staff members who have been working on this throughout the year as well. If you remember, we were presented with a document from our teaching and learning team that was put together with a handful of staff who I believe volunteered to help with that. And as we were reading through that original document that was provided to us from that group, we felt that it was a fairly specific document that perhaps would be best used as more of an AR. And that as a policy committee, we want to create policy or implement policy that is evergreen. Although having an evergreen policy in the world of AI seems like best wishes, but we want policy that is applicable for many situations over many years and not super specific to exactly what we're asking a teacher to do within a classroom. As such, we sort of sent that back to the teaching and learning team and asked if they would be comfortable with using that document as a guidance for an AR while we help implement a policy that is a bit more broad and a bit more overarching, so that it kind of gives the teaching, learning, and our administration and the school administration some freedom to work within this policy. So this policy is put together with input from OSBA and also looking at some neighboring districts and what they have put together for an artificial intelligence policy. We felt like this policy was broad enough and yet specific enough, which I think is always a goal. And we were able to send this also back to the committee that worked on the AI policy, and they were in agreement that this was a good route to take. So we will look forward to, seeing that AR put into place and being made specific and worked on throughout the years. But this will be our district's first AI policy.
Good question. We're trying to be more evergreen. In the student use as part of class, it talks about only free district approved versions, paid cannot be. Do we know, like, what the reasoning behind only free would be? Cause I can just see technology changing to where free versions don't work well and have to do a subscription.
So the issue here is really in Holly. I brought Holly to the table because she's been working with this. As we talked to Mr. McParland, our district kind of technology person, the issue is that we're not paying for, like, if we put it in the policy that we're gonna provide a premium service and we have to pay for it. And we don't pay for, we have some Google, through the Google Education, has some access to some different tools. But once we say that we're gonna provide that, then we've got to pay for it. That's my memory.
Yeah, and I would just add that this is an ever-changing field. And right now, we're finding that the free versions offer what we know our teachers need in the here and the now. And some teachers don't want to use it at all, and they want nothing to do with it. So I think there's enough flexibility within the platforms that exist right now until we know more, or until it becomes something that we see teachers need across the board. That might be a discussion later. But our teachers are so well equipped to work without it. We don't know what else lies within these tools, even within the next 6 months, with some of the things that are in use now. Magic School, ChatGPT, there's a couple of tools that there's nothing more that's needed than the free version.
I think why we're going to or I guess my question is why we're saying in the actual board policy only free, being that technology changes so much. I could easily see that going in the AR, and I don't want to put in the board policy that we will use subscription. I just more meant if we, being more broad with technology that changes so rapidly within the board policy itself might be better. And then having the AR say maybe free. So that way, if in 6 months from now, it radically changes and you as a team determine something else may be, that you can change that rather than always coming back to the board for something that's so rapidly changing. That's more my question.
Let us do some discussion, and if we make some changes, we'll bring it back as a outside of the consent agenda. But let's talk. I know when I talked to Jamie about this, Mr. McParland, it was really around kind of the issue of what we provide and what we pay for versus what's a personal tool. But I hear what you're saying.
It seems like in our current situation, though, it might not hurt to just leave free in there, just knowing that we're not gonna have a budget in 6 months to be purchasing service for AI, or maybe the next couple of years.
I think James' point though is like, if we push it into the AR, it's still, that's our best practice. Maybe there's a way to word this differently that just gives us a little more flexibility.
Cause I could see it even being like a classroom, cause I'm thinking of like Adobe Suite or whatever. You might not need every classroom, but maybe you have these classes that we put in and they need a subscription, but it's in board policy that they can't. And then it's just that they have to come back to us to change the whole policy versus just going to pay for a one, I don't know. Technology just changes very rapidly. Our policies do not.
Cool. Circle back.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're close.
Thank you, Holly. Yeah. Okay, next policy is policy JBAA. And if you can believe it, we did not have a policy specific to students in 504s. prior to this. 504s were certainly mentioned in many different policies. But this, policies is specific to 504 plans and keeps us in line, with everything that those plans entail. And I think also is a good resource for families to be able to find one section that speaks specifically to 504. So I'm grateful to see this one in here. Yeah. Was that helpful? Okay. That's it. Hey, that's it.
Yep.
So these will be, in the consent agenda February 10, right?
Yeah, February 10, and we'll do a little more work on the AI and push it back, maybe for a second reading, if we can get it there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Nichols, financial report for Nathan.
Right. Ready for the exciting stuff, right? Okay, one thing I wanted to start out with was that, everything financial for me right now, I'm cautiously pessimistic, just so you know. So I'm always gonna take the pessimistic route right now. We've done a lot of work over the last almost year now, learning, but also changing some processes. So we're creating the environment that we're gonna measure changes and projections from right now. And I say that because, where your eye already went was the estimated fund balance, because I'm pessimistic right now. And we had a lot of changes that went into the system in December. And those, I think I mentioned in the last report, like you're gonna see it go down before you see it go up. And that was because all those things were hitting in that same month. And that's what we're seeing here, is that those changes have now been put in, which included changes based on our estimate of membership and revenue, which was due in December. When we make that change, it affects our revenue. And in this case, we increased what we were expecting to spend on transportation, which increases our revenue. But also, we had an adjustment in the encumbrance we had for transportation. We were a little bit over encumbered, so we made adjustments there. We've made adjustments in encumbrances on utilities. And we're always looking at payroll rates to make sure they're accurate. So that's in here. And so that's largely why we see an increase in the fund balance. There's a lot of risks right now. This year, at this time last year, we were projecting a $554,000 ending fund balance because there's a lot of unknowns. And the two pieces of these financial reports are, number one, these are the system numbers that you guys get here. But on the cover sheet, this is my interpretation of what you see versus what I think is going to happen. And one of the risks that we have to this ending fund balance, which is expected, is like our sub costs. So our sub costs, we don't necessarily encumber all the costs because we don't really know what they're going to be or where they're going to land. And so those we have I'm estimating about 550,000 of risk there of this fund balance that could be in sub costs. Additionally, we don't know what the weather's going to do. Our utilities are a big part of what we spend money on that are largely out of our control. We've had big increases over the last 3 years in utility costs. We could have a mild winter, or February could be all snow. Who knows? So those are some things that we're looking down the line at. But one of the big things that happens in December is we kind of get the bulk of our property taxes. And we look at that because that also is a factor in our estimate of membership revenue with the state school fund. And those have come in actually as expected. So we have what we budgeted for, we've received 93.2% of what we budgeted for so far through December of local property taxes. At this time last year, based on our actuals, we received 93.1% at this point. That was the actuals. And so what it looks like is that we're pretty on target as far as what we were planning for local revenue. So that's good. So property taxes are good this year. Let's see here. One of the things that's not in here yet is we're still waiting for the grant agreement for the PEAK, which is the PE grant that offsets some costs of PE teachers. So that will come down the line. I'm still projecting around 900,000 for our ending fund balance. And that's just because until we really know how those costs play out, into the spring, I'm gonna stay on that lower number because that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like where we're heading. Could be better, likely will be better. You know, I'm being pessimistic. So it's only, this is December, halfway through. One of the things that I noted on our estimate of membership and revenue, which is what that does is we submit our student counts, our revenue expectations for not just what's happening this year, but also projecting for next year. And one of the things that contrasts is like, we get paid based on the grader of the prior year, the current year, or the projected, basically. And right now we're in hold harmless. We're in hold harmless as long as our enrollment keeps dropping. So which means we're looking at a year back, a year back, a year back. But the 2-year gap that I noticed when I submitted this was almost 200 kids. And so that's when we're talking about funding, that's what's trailing behind us right now, is that we're looking for that to catch up to us. Again, it's always going to be a year in arrears, but that was something I noted, that 200 kids is a big number over a 2-year span. So that's there. Let's see here. One of the things I also wanted to point out is that our method of encumbering funds and anticipated expenditures is much stronger than it was. It's a big difference year to year, which is partly why the ending fund balance projecting at this time last year was much lower. It's because we weren't encumbering the full year of funds for transportation or special ed contracts. We were doing, it was going on a month-to-month basis. And so it really made projections really difficult. And so now we're looking at, when we have a contract for something, what's that whole exposure going to be for the year? And so that's embedded in here, which is good. The other piece that surprised us last year was our high cost disability reimbursement from the state. And that's a fixed pot of money that all the districts kind of put in what their costs for high needs kids are, and then hope to get a portion of that pie. And that one caught us a little off guard last year, where we almost pretty much broke even on that. I think we got like $19,000, and we were expecting about 800,000. So that was a big drop last year. So on your sheet there, that shows up on the front one that shows the ending fund balance under state and federal sources, other state grants, it says high cost disability. So I've reduced that down to what we could get because there's such a fight for those funds. I don't want to be in the position on this projection again where we're anticipating $800,000 and we get 17,000. And so that one's a little lower, but I wanted to point that out there. About all I had on the.
So on that last point, you're saying it went from $1 million down to 325?
We budgeted for $1 million at the time. Yes, we were expecting about that at the time we did budget. But then we got surprised in May after we did budget, and it ended up being a net of about 17K. So we're just being cautious. This is the first year of the biennium. And so we'll see where other districts land as far as claiming those high costs. Unknowns, right? But they're all risks and things. Again, I'm being pessimistic. Cautious. Under the audit, so it's been frustrating me a little bit, I'll be honest. Part of the federal shutdown consequences was that auditing standards for federal grants was not released on time or in a timely manner. So they pretty much came out at the end of December, and then our auditors went to action on them. We've been talking to them almost every day now, trying to get our financials done. We have some revisions we have to our capital assets that are in one of the last things. And then right now we're working on something called SPIDs, which are that's a weird name, but it's about contracts. It's a new GASB rule, GASB 96 and 87, I believe. But straightening out what the statement is on those is what's hanging it up right now. We're hoping to get that in tomorrow. We're working with the software vendor that helps us track that. We have to get our actuals into the state by February 2nd, which is next Monday. or else they basically pause our state school fund payment until we get those actuals in. And so, we're almost there and, we're hoping to get that. We are gonna get that in.
But it's not us.
No, it's not us. It's a ripple effect of those standards being delayed and then the auditors. I mean, they're not just doing us. They're, municipal audits all happen at the same time. So anyway, that's the update on that. And then the last piece for me is just I included the calendar for the refinancing of the Dundee property. And nothing too exciting, just that we're gonna circulate the draft agreement out in early February, put it out basically for bids to get banks to be willing to purchase the debt. And then the district will be invited to on the determination of which financial institution to choose based on what's presented. And then we close on March 10th and funds are distributed. So nothing too exciting, but I wanted to be transparent that that is what was happening. That's what I got for you guys.
Question on the teacher subcost projected additional 550. Are we seeing a trend of more teachers taking days off this year?
No, but if you recall, last year we cut our in-district subs. And so we moved that budget and then a little bit more into a budget capacity for subs. And so we really don't have history right now of what that's gonna look like. We had the lowest annual sub costs through our basically our temporary agency for that last year that we've ever had. But I don't know what that's gonna look like. So yeah, so we just are, instead of us having an encumbrance that shows up as a potential expense, it's a risk that I'm identifying here. So it could be 300,000, it could be 600,000. That's, we don't know. We don't know how many people are gonna get sick.
So what have you already defined in that category now before the additional 550?
We have actual expenses plus, and then it'll be actual expenses plus 550. So I don't know. I don't think I have it broken.
You didn't have projections on what that would be this year?
We had, well, that was our budget number. So our budget number for subs was like 900 and it's in two places. It was around $1 million.
Yeah.
And we spent like 389 so far.
Okay.
So I'm saying, I'm just holding about 500K is saying, we're gonna spend into that. I just don't know how much.
We're still within budget though.
Yes, we're within budget. Yes.
We just didn't encumber it.
It's not an encumbered expense. Yeah. We pay it as the bills come in.
I have two quick questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for the update. So on page 40 of our packet, it says the forecasted ending fund balance is 855,000. And then on page 41 in our general fund revenue, it says the estimated ending fund balance as of the end of December is 1.3 million. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on, I know you've said you're pessimistic about this and maybe that's what has led us to the 855. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the numbers that you have are system. I don't adjust these numbers here. These are what's in the system. These are hard numbers. What I give you in the narrative is what my interpretation of what's probably gonna happen. So these numbers will change at month to month. So the budget numbers won't change month to month unless we do a change. But I'm trying to interpret what I think is gonna happen based on these numbers.
Okay.
And that's where the 855 is coming in.
So you're looking ahead,
Right.
Giving us some information about what you know is coming, some of the risks that are there. Okay.
Yeah, and these numbers are also always a month behind. So what I'm giving you is based on this, but also what I see at that time too. So there's an interpretation that's happening.
Okay. My second question is on the bottom of page 42, in the appropriations. The total comes to over 103 million. And our district budget is 60,504,000. So I want to make sure I'm clear on the difference between those two.
So this page, 42, is that right? Yep, I got a whole bunch right there. The bottom number is all funds. If you look at the top where it says general fund, you'll see the subtotal is 60,504,975. That's just our general fund. Our special revenue funds includes, our federal grants, local grants, donations. PERS is our 300 funds, which is our debt service. Capital projects is our 400 funds, which is any funds dedicated to, like the bond or specific to construction. So that's our all funds on page 42.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Nate? Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Board calendar, we can start to move here. So, after the last meeting, we made the suggested changes, one in July, and then basically we're doing 2 in August, 2 in September. We made the adjustment there for September, October, November, December, and then 2 the rest of the year. I like the schedule.
I move that the Newberg Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors approve the 26-27 board calendar as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Okay, call for a vote, all in favor, aye? It's already on it, so that's unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, academic calendars.
All right, so I'm back to, discuss academic calendars for next year. After our last meeting, I did email, the board. One additional oversight, was, the holiday of, Juneteenth. That falls on a Saturday, this next year, and so the actual observed day is June 18th, which is a Friday. That would push calendar option 1, last day of school to the 21st of June. So that is the modification that I made, and I did make that modification before I sent it out to our community for input. So I did want to share with you, there was the results of the community input. We had 406 participants. Some of you may have received that because you have kids in the district. So 406 participants. 320 thoughts and 5,666 ratings. I will be honest with you, I was kind of shocked. An overwhelming preference for calendar option 3, which is starting school on August 31st. There were lots of reasons and justifications for that in our comments. Lots of messaging around that early to mid-June ending. Lots of conversations about having planned family vacations in June. There was some definite recognition that the attention span and focus and motivation of our students starts to dwindle in June. And so they would be fresh in that last week of August, first week of September. And then we would have what I think most people consider a fairly normal ending in the second week of June. Lots of comments about best supporting families. One comment about starting after Labor Day as being outmoded. So this feeling that that it's okay to start before Labor Day. And I think specifically when we have such a late Labor Day like we're going into this year. The other clarifying point is that our this summer, if we started on August 31st, would not be shortened. It would be the same number of weeks as we have experienced previously. So my recommendation is to move forward with option 3 calendar for the 26-27 academic school year.
Quick question, I have nothing about the calendar, you said a stat in your surveys.
Yeah.
Something about 5,000 whatever?
5,666 comments. So the way
Oh,
that,
comments,
yeah.
okay, I thought you said like ratings or something, I don't know.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. So the way that thought exchange works is people make comments and then, other people rate them.
Okay.
And so, the vast majority of the highest rated comments were for option 3.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
I move that the Newberg Dundee Public Schools Board of Directors approve option 3 of the 2026-27 academic calendars as presented.
Second.
Any more questions or discussion?
Thank you for giving the community a chance to win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is on already, so 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, before we do an executive session, future agenda items. Not, I guess a placeholder, do we have anything we need to add?
For the future, it's, the next one will be at the district office, and then we're headed to you and Young, for the end of the month of February.
Okay, yeah, that was 10, there was a Roman numeral 9, I just wasn't sure if there's something else there, but
No.
that's fine. Okay, before I talk about executive session and we leave to that, are we going to a special room?
Yeah, we've got a room, a little conference room around, kind of in the blue hall.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll.
The old blue hall. Okay. Okay, at this time, we're gonna move to an executive session. That executive session is gonna cover ORS 192.660 parentheses 2 parentheses F and ORS 332.061 to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, specifically a request for a policy AC appeal related to confidential student matters. This is a closed session. The media and the public are not permitted to attend, as the information discussed is legally exempt from public disclosure. Normally do the PD executive session disclosure, but we've already claimed that they're not able to attend. So at this point, which is 8:29, we are going to go to the executive session and we'll come back to potentially do another action and then during the meeting.